Shabbat shalom. Sorry I'm late. I overslept. I took a nap and overslept. Sorry about that. Shabbat shalom. Glory and honor to our Father Yahweh and to Messiah Yahweh Shai. Glory and honor to their name. Glory and honor to Father and to his Son. Blessings and honor upon those and blessings upon the 144,000 and all of the Israelite people scattered throughout the four corners of the earth, as the Bible shows that we would be. Blessings and peace also upon those Gentiles who have come to the truth of righteousness of the Father. Welcome and blessings to all of the brethren that are here in the chat. GD, Yakoba, Yafi, Akawan Banya, Brother Mark, Hebrewish Rhonda, Ricky Boyd, Isha Shama, Superstar, Brother Manny, Brother Stephen Kelly, Naviska, Brother Gary Joseph, Brother Brandon Beckman, Psalm 119, Imana Prakash, Castle King Ruel. Please pray for Brother Ruel. His mother passed away yesterday. And so please pray for Brother Castle King. He's it's hard for everybody when these things happen. I'm dealing with my father hasn't passed away yet. Sometimes I feel like he has, but if you would pray for Brother Castle King, I greatly appreciate it. We would all greatly appreciate it. Yeah, it's not easy, man. This has been some week, put it that way. It's been some week this week. But you know what today is, right? Y'all know what today is? It's funny. In the calendar, they call this a super moon, a super harvest moon. It's interesting. They call it a super harvest moon. Yeah, they call it a super harvest moon. It's interesting that they call it a super harvest moon because this is the Feast of the Tabernacles. Sunset today is the Shabbat, and it's the Feast of the Tabernacles. And the Feast of the Tabernacles is about the harvest of the souls that are going to be the populace of the Messiah's kingdom. The people that are going to make up the kingdom are the harvest. The Feast of the Tabernacles, they calling it the harvest supermoon today. Now, where I'm at here in Florida right now, it's so cloudy. It's cloudy, very thick clouds. You can't see the moon, but I'm sure some of y'all can see it, right? Some of y'all can see the moon. Some of y'all can see it. It's the Feast of the Tabernacles. Praise the Most High. I praise the Most High. My wife and I got a chance to pray yesterday with my dad and on his behalf. And, one thing that when we talk about the Feast of Tabernacles, when we all are standing on the sea of glass, we understand, not only will we understand that we have made it. I mean, we really would have made it. You're in the kingdom when you're standing on the sea of glass. But and of course, you're going to see the Messiah. You're going to see the Father. You're going to see the saints. You're going to see brethren, and you're going to see family members. But we will all understand that there'll be no more death. Now, that's a beautiful thing. There'll be no more death. There'll be no more disease. There'll be no more getting old and dying. There'll be no more of that, and that's one of the great promises. In fact, to me, it's one of the greatest promises in the Bible. When you look at, in my view, it's my view. It may not be for everybody, but when you look at Revelation chapter 21, yeah, no more pain. The Bible says that the inhabitant shall not say, I am sick. It won't be. No sickness, no disease, no death. And to know and understand, brethren, from the word of the Most High, that this is very soon. Like, this is the hope of all the prophets of the Bible. And we're on the brink of it. You and I, we're on the brink of it. Revelation chapter 21, beginning at verse 1. And I'm going down to verse 7. Revelation chapter 21 from verse 1 to 7. And I saw a new heaven and a new earth. For the first heaven and the first earth were passed away, and there was no more sea. And of course, we understand also when it talks about a new heaven, that means a new firmament, right? Y'all understand that the heaven is the firmament. And so he's going to make a new firmament on the, that surrounds the earth, and a new earth. Praise the Most High. And I, John, saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down from Yahweh out of heaven, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. And I heard a great voice out of heaven saying, behold, the tabernacle of Yahweh was with men, and he will dwell with them, and they shall be his people. And Yahweh himself shall be with them and be their Most High. And Yahweh shall wipe away all tears from their eyes, and there shall be no more death, neither sorrow nor crying, neither shall there be any more pain, for the former things are passed away. And he that sat upon the throne said, behold, I make all things new. And he said unto me, write, for these words are true and faithful. And he said to me, it is done. I am Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end. I will give unto him that is athirst of the fountain of the water of life freely. He that overcometh shall inherit all things. And I will be his Most High. He shall be my son. Praise the Most High, man. To know that we're on the brink of these things, brethren, that we're right here at the end of time. To know that as tonight is the Feast of Tabernacles, we only have a few more Feast of Tabernacles in this kingdom until we are on the real Feast of Tabernacles on the Sea of Glass. Not much longer. And you know what? It's like I've said, and Brother Cancer King certainly knows. We were talking last night and today. There's things you cannot prepare for, right? You can know in advance, but you just can't be prepared for them. Well, brethren, I'm going to tell you, it's just so. There's things that we can imagine, but really we won't know until we see it. I mean, just what we just read about in terms of no more death, no more disease, a new heaven, new firmament, new earth. Until we actually experience it, we could talk about it, we could read about it, we could believe it, but there's no way to be prepared for it until you actually see it. Okay? And we're living in a time in the history of this planet that is true of a lot of things. Like, you can imagine certain things and things you can't imagine, but the things that, when you see some of the bad and the good, you could not prepare for it. Okay, no matter what. So, brethren, the thing that will keep us is the Father's Spirit. The thing that will keep us strong, the thing that will keep us together, the thing that will keep us as brethren, the thing that makes us brethren is the Father's Spirit in us. And we are talking today of Genesis chapter 37, where brethren sold brethren into slavery. It's interesting. I listen almost every day. Well, pretty much every day. I listen to Malcolm X speeches every day. My wife gets tired of it. I listen to him all the time. But I don't agree with everything Malcolm X says. Um, it's the same with Khalid Abdul Muhammad. I listen to their speeches, but what causes me to love them, honestly, though I've never met them, is the love and sincere, earnest desire they have to help their people. That's what comes through. All the doctrines that Malcolm X talks about, or all the doctrines that Khalid Abdul Muhammad talks about, I don't believe a lot of the doctrines they believe. Okay, I don't believe a lot of the things they say. But overall, what I get, the spirit I'm feeling when I'm listening to them, is that they love their brethren and that they were willing to sacrifice themselves, even unto death, for the love and good of their brethren. Okay? And in both cases, their own brethren killed them. You understand? And so one of the speeches I listened to, Malcolm X, I mentioned this to you a couple of weeks ago. He talked about the meeting that took place in 1956 among different nations. And he talked about how at this meeting you had people from China and people from Asia, and you had people from Africa, and you had people all over the earth. And he said the only people that weren't not allowed at the meeting were Europeans. They weren't allowed at the meeting. Okay. And this meeting took place, and Malcolm X was suggesting, he said, well, see, when they had this meeting and the white man wasn't in this meeting, they came together. He said, that's what we need to do. We need to understand our enemy is the European, and we need to come together without the European, blah, blah, blah. And that's what he was saying. And every time I hear it, it bothers me, because I'm like, he doesn't understand the Judas principle. Judas was an Israelite. Judas was a black man. He doesn't understand that principle. He didn't. Neither did Khalid Muhammad. Because oftentimes I have heard, maybe you have heard, I have heard people of the children of Yafet say, well, you can't blame us for slavery. Your own brothers sold you to us. They seem to try to justify slavery with this statement. Your own brothers sold you to us into slavery. Now, we who understand the truth know that the Bible shows us. In fact, let's take a look at it in Joel chapter 3. In Joel chapter 3, it gives us an example. And there was other places too. But in Joel chapter 3, when you read Joel chapter 3, I'm going to start at verse 1. In Joel chapter 3, I'm going to start at verse 1. And I'm going to go from verse 1 down to verse 6. Actually, down to verse 7. But it's verse 4 that I want to focus on. So it's Joel chapter 3 from verse 1 to 7. Watch this. For behold, in those days and in that time, when I shall bring again the captivity of Judah and Jerusalem, I will also gather all nations and will bring them down into the valley of Jehoshaphat. This is the same as Armageddon. Okay. And will plead with them there for my people and for my heritage, Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations and parted my land. And they have cast lots for my people, and have given a boy for a harlot, and sold a girl for wine, that they might drink. Yea, and what have ye to do with me, O Tyre and Zidon, and all the coasts of Palestine? Will ye render me a recompense? If ye recompense me swiftly and speedily, I will return your recompense upon your own head. Because ye have taken my silver and my gold, and have carried into your temples my goodly, pleasant things. The children also of Judah and the children of Jerusalem have ye sold unto the Grecians, that ye might remove them far. from their border. Behold, I will raise them out of the place where ye have sold them, and return your recompense upon your own head. So when he mentions Tyre and Zidon, that's Hamites. When he mentions Grecians, that's Japhet. So he's telling us that the Hamites sold the children of Israel to the children of Japhet. And we know that that did happen because the word is telling us. But that's not only happened. There were brethren of the Israelites that were also selling Israelites to Japhet. Now, that does not justify Japhet, though they try to make that statement to justify themselves. They will be, as the Bible says, swiftly recompensed for what they did. But let us not deceive ourselves. Joseph was sold by his brothers. Joseph was sold into slavery by his brothers. Judas, an Israelite, betrayed the Messiah. So while it sounds unifying for Malcolm X to say, yup, get rid of the white man and your problems will be solved. We know that is not true. That is not true. Okay, that is not true. Fred Hampton was sold out by William O'Neill. Well, who was William O'Neill? Well, he was Fred Hampton's head of security. He was Fred Hampton's head of security. And he gave Fred Hampton the drugs and gave the police the diagram of the apartment so they can come murder him. Later on, William O'Neill jumped out a building window, ran into the middle of a highway and killed himself. Shortly after confessing and doing an interview about what he did, he killed himself. Judas also killed himself. Okay? So why am I saying all this? Let us never forget, wow, the former slaves that are the so-called black man is the Israelite. What draws us together isn't the fact that we were all former slaves, although that's a major thing. What draws us together is the Father's Spirit and his righteousness. That's what makes us brethren. That's what's going to keep us together. That's what's going to make us family. That does make us family. The Father's Spirit and righteousness makes us family. And we have learned. Uriah the Hittite was one of David's most trusted soldiers that David murdered. Uriah the Hittite. Okay? Ebed-Melech, a eunuch, pulled Jeremiah out of a pit that they intended him to die in. Let us never forget, while yes, we have a lot in common as former slaves, what draws us as brethren is the Father's Spirit. The Father's Spirit not only draws us together as brethren, but it gives us wisdom and understanding. The Father's Spirit gives us wisdom and understanding. That is why, brethren, you hear me always imploring you two things, right? Pray to your Heavenly Father and read your Bible. Pray to your Heavenly Father and read your Bible. These two things will protect you and keep you. These two things will guide the steps of your life. You know, Solomon asked for wisdom. The Father said, what do you want me to give you? Asked him, because that was David's son. He said, give me wisdom He said, because I don't know how to go in and out among the people. In other words, I am not up to this task of being the leader of a nation. I need your wisdom. So I'm going to give you wisdom. Well, brethren, let me ask you something. If Solomon needed wisdom then, in this world as it now stands, do we need wisdom to go in and out among the peoples? Do we need wisdom and understanding from the Father to handle ourselves in this scenario? Yeah, even worse than Solomon. And Solomon was the king of a nation. We're not kings of nations, but we're in the world where it is on crazy right now. It is on sick. And in order to handle ourselves in this world with all the deception and all of the con artists and all of the things going on, we need the Father's wisdom and understanding. He said, wisdom is the important thing. Therefore, he said in Proverbs, get wisdom. And with all thy getting, get understanding. It is that spirit, same spirit of the Father, of the seven spirits before his throne, that bring us righteousness and truth, wisdom and understanding, and make us come together as brothers and sisters. We could all desire to come together and say, let's pool all our money and keep it in our community. It sounds nice. But unless you're being guided by the Father's wisdom and understanding, you're going to get conned. You're going to trust somebody that looks like you, and sounds like you, and talks like you, and they're going to take you. Unless you have the Father's spirit of wisdom and understanding. Genesis chapter 37. Genesis chapter 37. Genesis 37. Oh, and I also want to thank you all for praying for my dad. I really, really appreciate all the support y'all gave me this week. Castle King needs it too. It's hard for me to talk about him. But I do want to say this. He's feeling better. Seriously, he's feeling better. You know why I know he's feeling better? Today was his birthday. And I bought him some pie. And I made a mistake. and I'm serious. He told me to go to hell. I said, oh, shoot, he's feeling better. He's feeling better now. And a nurse, I had told a nurse, a Boricua, that today was his birthday. And she told me, she said, I came in there and I sat in his bed today and I told him happy birthday. And he said, what the hell are you doing? See, that's my daddy, man. And I said, oh, he's feeling better. Seriously, sometimes when a person, how people are. People going to be what they are. And my father's going to be what he is. Okay? He's going to be what he is. So when he was reacting like that, I said, oh, you're going to be difficult. Made me mad, man. I said, I cooked this food for you. My wife made you some potatoes with gravy. This ain't no hospital food. He said, I ain't eating it. He said, I told you I ain't eating it. Oh, man. I said, you must be feeling better then. You must be feeling like you're right. I said, you must be feeling like yourself then. Had me mad up in there. And then the nurse, the nurse was getting off her shift, the same nurse. And she came when we was all there and she started dancing in front of him and said, I'm going to tell you happy birthday anyway. Oh man, and that's why I knew he was feeling better, man. So I praise the most. That's why I'm thanking y'all for your prayers. Really, it means a lot. But man, I said, "Oh, my daddy's feeling better." Uh, oh man, it was good though. So yeah, that was really appreciated. All the support. And like I said, Brother Castle King needs it too. Shoot, man, there's no way you could prepare for your parent to die. There's no way. But praise the Most High. Yeah, that was funny, man. It really was, though. I was mad at first, but then I said, "This Negro here, man." Oh man. Uh, yep. Sometimes you could take the Negro out of the hood, but you cannot take the hood out of it. Sometimes you can take the Negro out of the hood, but you cannot take the hood out of the Negro. You just can't do it. Oh, man. Praise the Most High. All right. Praise the Most High. So, Genesis 37. Genesis 37. We're going to begin at verse 1. Some interesting things, obviously, in Genesis 37. The main thing we're talking about today is brothers betraying betraying brothers. Okay, and so the dynamics of the brethren between each other in Genesis 37 is powerful, and we're going to see it here. So Genesis 37, beginning at verse 1. I'm going to read from verse 1 down to verse 4. Okay, Genesis 37 from 1 to 4. And Jacob dwelt in the land wherein his father was a stranger, in the land of Canaan. And you remember the prophecy that the father gave to Abraham. He said, your seed is going to be a stranger in a land that's not theirs. So people, equate it to the United States. And I understand that, but Canaan, they were strangers in the land of Canaan. Abraham was a stranger in the land. Isaac was a stranger in the land. And Jacob, who is now Yasher, he was a stranger in the land, him and all his children. So Jacob dwelt in the land wherein his father was a stranger, in the land of Canaan. These are the generations of Jacob. Joseph being 17 years old, very important. I always take note when they give somebody's age because it helps you understand how, time frame in terms of, for example, when you look at Joseph being 17 at this time, it helps you really understand. I came to the conclusion that the Israelites were really in Egypt for about 200 years, a little over 200 years. They were really in Egypt. And Joseph's age helped me understand that. So we're going to come back to this, that Joseph was 17 at this time. We're going to come back to that. So Joseph, being 17 years old, was feeding the flock with his brethren. And the lad was with the sons of Bilhah and with the sons of Zilpah, his father's wives. And Joseph brought unto his father their evil report. Well, y'all know what that is. He was a tattletale, right? What we call, you got one of your siblings is the tattletale. Ooh, I'm telling. Didn't y'all used to hate that? Ooh, I'm telling. That was Joseph. That was Joseph. Now, Israel loved Joseph more than all his children because he was the son of his old age, and he made him a coat of many colors. And when his brethren saw that their father loved him more than all his brethren, they hated him and could not speak peaceably unto him. So, Jacob favored Joseph. Now, I'm not saying it's justified, but we can understand why he did that. Reuben was his firstborn of all his children. Yeah, right, Kitty. That's right. Reuben was his firstborn, but Joseph was the firstborn of Rachel. Now you remember, while Leah was a faithful wife and the Most High blessed, he really loved Rachel above Leah, above all the women. Okay. And Joseph was the firstborn of Rachel. When Reuben slept with his father's concubine, Reuben lost the blessing of the firstborn. Now, the blessing of the firstborn means that the firstborn gets a double portion of what the father leaves. Okay? So that's the blessing of the firstborn. So if there's three brethren, the firstborn, you divide the inheritance into four. And the firstborn gets 2/4, and each one other gets 1/4. That's how you do it. So if there's two brethren, you divide the inheritance into three. And the firstborn gets 2/3. And the second child gets 1/3. The firstborn always gets the double blessing. So there's 12 sons. So you divide the inheritance into 13, right? And you give Joseph 2/13. Now, as we now know, Joseph did get 2/13, right? Because there were 12 tribes, yet there were 13. Because you have Levi was 13, but then you have Ephraim and Manasseh were Joseph's sons, and they became each one a tribe of Israel because Joseph got the double blessing. Y'all understand that? So Joseph's two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, each inherited a tribe of Israel. They didn't have to do that. But because Joseph got the blessing of the firstborn, he got a double blessing. Ephraim and Manasseh represent Joseph in the nation. Joseph got the double blessing. The only brother of all the brothers to have two tribes representing him because he got the double blessing. So the brothers, so that being the case, and Jacob, when you look at him being 17, eventually we're going to figure out that Jacob was about 100. He was close to 100 years old when he had Joseph. That's why it says here, he says he loved him because he was the son of his old age. Okay. So he loved Joseph because Rachel bore Joseph for him when Jacob was older. Okay. So now he treated him like that. And not only that, Joseph was the tattletale. Ooh, I'm telling. They all hated him between him being treated like royalty above all his brethren and then him being the tattletale and his father favoring him, So all that made it tough. Now, when you are a child, a son, or a daughter of Father Yah, and some of you, what I'm about to say, I know a lot of y'all are going to be able to relate. Okay, just you can bear witness though. When you are walking with the Father, and it's your desire consciously to glorify your Heavenly Father, you're a son or a daughter of Father Yah. He sometimes gives you dreams, doesn't he? Can y'all bear witness? And usually the dreams will be telling you something about your future. And he is in the dream, he's showing you something about your future. Sometimes you can't understand it at first. And this is what we're going to see here. Sometimes you can't understand it at first. But then later on, it'll come back to your mind because things in life will show you he's bringing to pass what he showed you. Right? So, right. See, so some of them, like he gave me dreams. Let's say he gave me a dream in 1987. that I didn't understand and didn't start coming to pass until I found this truth and started this ministry. And then I understood what that dream meant. In the dream, in 1987, I was an SDA Christian in New York. And he showed me myself preaching. And he showed me myself preaching and saying, all the churches are corrupt. That was all that was a dream. He showed me preaching. He showed me myself preaching, saying, all the churches are corrupt. And what am I preaching now? That was 1987. I became conscious of this truth around 2012, 2011, something like that. So that was like 34 years, 35 years, or 25 years. Yeah, 25 years after he showed me the dream. So sometimes it's for a distance. When he told Abraham, he showed Abraham, I'm going to make you a great nation. Abraham was 75 years old when he showed him. Abraham didn't realize the fulfillment of that until he was 100, 25 years later. So sometimes my point is he'll give you dreams. Sometimes the dreams take place sooner, but many times it's your future, like far in your future. So like sometimes so far you might have forgotten about the dream. Now I couldn't forget that one because it was so clear. And then sometimes he showed me dreams of places we were going to live, which we ended up living, but they wouldn't take 20 years, but sometimes they're far in the future. Sometimes they're far in the future. But he shows us dreams. Well, let me explain something to you, brethren. When he shows you a dream, take it seriously. And understand, you may not understand what it means right away. You may not understand what it means for a long time. No, we don't have long left right now. We ain't got 25 years left. Some of y'all might have had dreams many years ago that's getting ready to come to pass now or in the next few years. That's how they work. Okay? That's how they work. So Joseph had dreams. The fact that Joseph was convicted to tell the dreams told Jacob something, but his brethren didn't get it. Why? Because his brethren wasn't in the spirit. When you're not in the spirit, a dream don't mean nothing. When you're not in the spirit, you don't understand. It doesn't mean anything. And you know what the word says about that? Romans chapter 8. Romans chapter 8. Romans chapter 8. Going to begin at verse 4. Romans chapter 8. Going to begin at verse 4. And I'm going to go down to verse 9. Romans chapter 8 from verses 4 to 9. That the righteousness of the law might be fulfilled in us, who walk not after the flesh, but after the Spirit. For they that are after the flesh do mind the things of the flesh, but they that are after the Spirit, the things of the Spirit. For to be carnally minded is death, but to be spiritually minded is life and peace. Because the carnal mind is enmity against Yah, for it is not subject to the law of Yah, neither indeed can be. So that they that are in the flesh cannot please Yah. But ye are not in the flesh, but in the Spirit. If so be that the Spirit of Yah dwell in you. Now, if any man have not the Spirit of Messiah, he is none of his. Brethren, walk in the Spirit. Again, that's one Pauline witness, the other one Galatians. And you shall not fulfill the lust of the flesh. Walk in the Spirit. Always walk in the realm of the Spirit. Because, brethren, am I lying to you if I say the spirit world is more active even than the physical world? That The spirit world is where everything is happening that causes the physical things to happen. That if you understand and walk in the Father's spirit, you will be able to see things that the people can't see because they're walking in the flesh. When you walk in the Father's spirit, let me ask you a question. Does the Father's spirit ever die? Messiah was anointed with the Father's spirit. They put him to death. But Peter said it was impossible for death to hold him. Brethren, if we walking in the Father's spirit, the righteousness and wisdom of the Father's spirit is eternal. Death will not be able to hold us. That's why Messiah calls us who fall asleep in the spirit. That's what he calls it, asleep. He said, our brother Lazarus sleepeth, and I go to wake him out of his sleep. And they, being in carnal mind, the disciples said, well, if he's sleeping, he's doing good then. Leave him alone. And then Messiah had to say plainly, Lazarus is dead, so that the carnal mind could understand what he was trying to tell them. He said, Lazarus is dead, but I'm glad I wasn't there for your sake, that you might believe, because he knew he was going to raise Lazarus from the dead. And it takes us a minute to understand that we need to walk in the spirit. Give you understand, my wife and I are so used to it. 2 nights ago, we got a call about 2 a.m. from one of my daughters. Her husband had such bad pain in his side, she had to take him to the emergency room. And my daughter was, of course, very concerned. She had to drive. Her husband was doubled over in pain. She had to take him to the emergency room. And you know what happened, brother? I'm telling you, my wife will bear witness. When my daughter was upset, and my wife told me, and I prayed. I didn't get up on my knees and pray. I prayed from where I was laying right there. But both my wife and I said, but we didn't receive any dreams about this. Like, we're so used to the Father warning us about something like that's going to be terrible that would come, that we were both saying we didn't receive any dreams about this. Therefore, we understood it was going to pass. It wasn't going to be as serious as we thought, because we hadn't received any messages from the Father about it. And it did pass. See? So just like Ali Shah. Remember Ali Shah, the widow's son that he prayed for her, she had a son and she was older. And then later on, the boy died. And she came running to the prophet, and she didn't tell nobody nothing. She left the boy in his room on his bed dead. Told her husband, I'm going to see the prophet. I'll be back. Didn't tell nobody the boy was dead. She went to the prophet, and she grabbed him by the legs. And his servant, the prophet's servant, said, should I pull her off? He said, no. Something happened. But the spirit didn't tell me. And the woman explained to him that the boy had died. And he went back with her to our house, and he laid on the boy's body and breathed on him until the boy's spirit came back and he was raised from the dead. The point is, the Father hadn't shown him that because the Father was setting him up for that scenario. There is a spirit world. Joseph had a dream, but his brethren didn't understand until later what this dream should mean. Joseph is 17. It was going to be more than 20 years before his brethren understood what that dream meant. And Joseph himself understood what that dream meant. 20 years. Let's read it. Genesis chapter 37, beginning at verse 5. Genesis chapter 37, beginning at verse 5, and go down to verse 8. And Joseph dreamed a dream, and he told it his brethren, and they hated him yet the more. And he said unto them, hear, I pray you, this dream which I have dreamed. For behold, we were binding sheaves in the field, and lo, my sheaf rose, and also stood upright. And behold, your sheaf stood around about and made obeisance to my sheaf. And his brethren said to him, shalt thou indeed reign over us? Or shalt thou indeed have dominion over us? And they hated him yet more for his dreams and for his words. Joseph was being called, right? He was being called by the Father, even that time. He didn't understand it. His brethren just hated him, but he did have the dream. He wasn't making it up. He did have the dream. And we will understand, of course, as we read Genesis, what this meant. It would be 20 years later that he would understand what this meant. Let's read some more. Verse 9. I'm going to read from verse 9 to 11. And he dreamed yet another dream and told it his brethren and said, behold, I have dreamed a dream more. And behold, the sun and the moon and the 11 stars made obeisance to me. And he told it to his father and to his brethren. And his father rebuked him and said unto him, what is this dream that thou hast dreamed? Shall I and thy mother and thy brethren indeed come to bow down ourselves to thee, to the earth? And his brethren envied him, but his father observed the saying. See, Jacob knew more about the spirit, had intelligences, has had communications with the spirit. Remember the dream of the ladder. Remember the time the Most High talked to him, told him to leave Laban. Remember the time he wrestled with the angel of the Most High, which was the Messiah. And he said, your name is no longer Jacob, but Yasha'al. He had experience. So he observed. He said, something's going on here. But he didn't understand it because in the dream, Joseph had everybody bowing to him. It's like Joseph was different. Joseph was different. Y'all know that, right? You have people in your family. And there's always that one that's just different than everybody else. You know what I'm talking about, right? There's that one that's different. They used to say it about me. I didn't understand it. But my aunts on my father's side and my aunts on my father's side, the ones that come up from Florida, the ones that come up from sharecropping, the ones that come up from being housemaids, the ones that come up from picking fruit down here as slaves, even though it was the 20th century here in Florida. And they was a rough bunch. And they was a rough bunch. What you never wanted was one of them to beat you. You did not want that. If that was to happen today, the way they used to do it back then, they would be in jail. Seriously. They was a rough crew, okay? But when they spoke about me, my Aunt Tuji was the roughest of them all. I'm not even joking. She was the roughest of them all. Aunt Tuji said, he's different. You know, he's different. And all my life, I think I was 7 or 8. She had to whip me once. She didn't have to do it twice. Aunt Tuji, I told the line. And my father was rough. But Aunt Tuji, you did not want to get on Aunt Tuji's bad side. Put it this way. I was present. I bore witness as I watched Aunt Tuji break a man's jaw with her left hook. A left hook. This was before anybody knew about gangsters and gangster rap in the Black community. Aunt Tuji was a gangster. And she said, he's different. She said, Aunt Tuji, he's going to be a preacher. I was thinking at the time, I'm going to be a football player. But she saw something different. And yes, I felt different, but I didn't know what it was. I didn't know the Father was calling me at that time. And so I understand what Joseph's dealing with. There's always that one that's different. Joseph was that one. He was different. And so his father treated him different, but his brethren, being in the carnal mind, was just getting angry at him because he was a little tattletale. So they was just getting mad at him. He was daddy's favorite. Okay? They were just getting more angry at him now because of his dreams. But his dreams, they should have paid attention because they meant something. Oh yeah, that one time she was living in the projects in Hempstead, and I don't remember what I did. I knew I did something wrong. I can't remember what it was. I think I back talked her or something. I did something wrong. I remember I did. And she ain't had to beat me long. I caught it. And I think I was 7 or 8 years old, rest of my life. No problem with my Aunt Tucci. Now, my brother, my cousins, I don't know, they just didn't pick up on it. Maybe they had some sort of pain tolerance. I don't know. But me, myself, no more problems with Aunt Tucci. Caught it first time. But she said, he's going to be a preacher. Okay? You know what I mean? So there's always that one. Yeah, there's always that one. And Joseph was that one. You understand? Oh, yeah, I caught the message, man. I got the memo. I got the memo. Okay. I did a lot of bad after that, but never, ever around Aunt Tucci. Nope. May she rest in peace. Yeah. But she said, he's different. He's different. And they agreed. The other aunt sat there and said, yep, you're right. He is different. I didn't know what they meant. But they saw, Aunt Tucci saw something that I didn't see, but the Father had been calling me from before that. Praise the Most High. And he was calling Joseph. Oh, Aunt Tucci was, I loved her. She was my favorite aunt. She was a gangster. She really was. She was a gangster. She used to carry a meat cleaver in her pocketbook. My Aunt Tucci was a straight gangster, man. I ain't even lying. She was a straight gangster, man. And I'm not even lying. I was right there. She caught this brother with a left hook and he did the crumble, man. He collapsed like the Twin Towers. I'm trying to tell you. Next time I saw him, his door was wide shut. Yeah, no, some people carry a little strap. I had another aunt carry a little strap. Somebody said, go get the switch. Not Aunt Tucci. You want to mess with her, man. You won't mess with her at all. But she the one told me. She didn't tell me they was adults. And back at that time, when you were young, you didn't speak when adults were speaking. Y'all understand? Some of y'all understand the old school. When adults was talking, you don't say nothing. I made that mistake with my dad once. Said something while adults was talking. Never made that mistake again. When the adults talking, first of all, you're not supposed to be there. And secondly, if you there, you don't say nothing. You keep your mouth shut. So in this particular instance, I was in the kitchen. They was in the living room talking. And I heard them talking. And I was listening. But I wasn't going to be in the living room. And I definitely wasn't going to be saying nothing. That's right, Castle King. Same daddy. Yeah. So, yeah. Joseph was called. Let's keep reading. This is Genesis chapter 37. I'm going to read from verse 13. From verse 13 down to verse from 13 down to 19. And his brethren envied him, but his father observed the same. And his brethren went to feed their father's flock in Shechem. And Israel said unto Joseph, do not thy brethren feed the flock in Shechem? Come, and I will send thee unto them. And he said unto him, here am I. And he said to him, go, I pray thee, and see whether it be well with thy brethren, and well with the flocks, and bring me word again. So he sent him out of the vale of Hebron, and he went to Shechem. And a certain man found him, and behold, he was wandering in the field. And the man asked him, saying, what seekest thou? And he said, I seek my brethren. Tell me, I pray thee, where they feed their flocks. And the man said, They are departed hence, for I heard them say, Let us go to Dothan. And Joseph went after his brethren and found them in Dothan. And when they saw him afar off, even before he came near to them, they conspired against him to slay him. And they said one to another, Behold, this dreamer cometh. So they saw him afar off. Now, it's interesting. He's walking from Hebron to Dothan. I'm not sure how far it is, but it must have been a distance. He gets lost. Well, first he's going to Shechem. He gets lost. And a man was there, just as a man was there. And he asked the man, You see my brother? And the man said, They're in Dothan. He told Joseph they was in Dothan. And Joseph found them in Dothan. Now, who was that man? Never says who that man was. The man said, he said there was a man there. A certain man found him. And behold, he was wandering in the field, almost like he was lost. And the man was directing him. The brethren in Dothan. That's where they be. And he went to go see the brethren in Dothan. They see him walking. They see him afar off. And now they're conspiring to kill him. There's 11 brethren. Well, 10. It wasn't Benjamin. But the 10 brethren is about 15 miles on. It's a good distance. So the 10 brethren were conspiring to kill him. And somebody directed him to Dothan. You know, sometimes the Father leads us, and we know he's leading us. And we end up somewhere that we like, why did he lead me here? You ever do that? Say, why did he lead me here? What are we doing? What am I doing here? But you know he led you there. Well, here's Joseph. He's going to Dothan. And he's going to find some problems when he goes to Dothan. But as we will find out, obviously, the whole thing was of the Father. The whole thing was of the Father. The dreams, being led to Dothan, the whole thing was of the Father. I'm sure Joseph didn't understand. And I'm sure that wasn't his brother's intent to do the Father's will, but the thing was of the Father. Again, I can give you another story. My mother, when I was 11, my brother was 8. We was getting ready for school one day. My mother was home. My father went out to work. He left for work he would leave for work at 6 to clock in at 7. We would, at that same time that he was leaving for work, be dressing for school to catch the school bus at about 6:35, something like that. So we were dressed, ready to go. As we were getting ready to step out the door for the school bus, my mother stops us. And a car pulls up in front of the house with a woman that my brother and I recognized. My mother had our bags packed. We got inside the car. I didn't know what was going on. She said, shut up and get in the car. I'm 11. My brother's 8. It's about January. Cold. We had our heavy coats on. So we're in the car. Mom, where are we going? Shut up. We get to the airport. Mom, where are we going? You're going to see your grandmother. We were on a plane. It's in the middle of the week in January in New York. Now, at that time, the planes, I don't know, they seemed bigger. They had 3 rows, all of them. They were bigger planes, but it was almost like it was only me and my brother on the plane. And the stewardess was very nice to us. It was just me and my brother on my plane. I said, we're going to see my grandmother. I knew my grandmother was in Florida with my Aunt Vin. We get to Miami. I still have our heavy coats on. I still got turtlenecks. It's January in New York. It's like 25 degrees. We're in Miami. It's 85. What are we doing down here? My grandma said, you're going to be staying with us for a little while. We stayed with them for 2 years. It was there that I learned the Bible. It was there that they taught me about the Bible. It was there that I started reading it through the first time. So my mother would later say, well, you found God when I sent you to your grandmother. She didn't mean, she wanted to hurt my father. That was her intent. Her intent was to hurt my father by taking us away. She didn't want us. She just didn't want him to have us. But it turned out that the Father had a plan for me to learn the word from my Aunt Vin and my grandmother from Kingston, Jamaica. That was his intent. It wasn't my mother's intent. That was his intent. Well, Joseph's brethren were working the Father's will, though that wasn't their intent. Genesis chapter 37, verse 20. Verse 20 down to verse 22. Come now, therefore, let us slay him and cast him into some pit, and we will say some evil beast hath devoured him, and we shall see what will become of his dreams. And Reuben of all people, and Reuben heard it, and he delivered him out of their hands and said, let us not kill him. And Reuben said unto them, shed no blood, but cast him into this pit that is in the wilderness, and lay no hand upon him, that he might rid him out of their hands, to deliver him to his father again. Of all the brethren, the one that lost the blessing, the oldest, said, don't kill him, and had intent on saving Joseph and bringing him back to his dad. That's interesting, isn't it? That's an interesting dynamic. You would think Reuben would be the one saying, yeah, kill him. Reuben said, don't. Reuben's intent was to save Joseph. Okay. Verse 23. And it came to pass when Joseph was come unto his brethren, that they stripped Joseph out of his coat of many colors that was on him. Verse 24. And they took him and cast him into a pit, and the pit was empty, and there was no water in it. Verse 25. And they sat down to eat bread, and they lifted up their eyes and looked, and behold, a company of Ishmaelites came from Gilead with their camels, bearing spicery and balm and myrrh, going to carry it down to Egypt. So Ishmaelites, Ishmael's family, was going through. They were on their way to trade in Mizraim or Egypt, and the brethren saw them coming through. So they're coming through from what was Gilead. Gilead later became Manasseh's territory. They were coming from there, and they were going down to trade in Africa, in Mizraim, which the Greeks called Egypt, the house of bondage. Verse 27. 20, I'm going to read from 26 to 29. And Judas said unto his brethren, what profit is it if we slay our brother and conceal his blood? Come and let us sell him to the Ishmaelites, and let not our hand be upon him, for he is our brother and our flesh. And his brethren were content. Then there passed by Midianites, merchantmen, and they drew and lifted up Joseph out of the pit and sold Joseph to the Ishmaelites for 20 pieces of silver. And they brought Joseph into Egypt. And Reuben returned into the pit, and behold, Joseph was not in the pit, and he rent his clothes. So Reuben apparently wasn't there when he sold them to the merchantmen, the traveling merchantmen. And he comes back later to get the boy out the pit, and the boy's gone. And Reuben's thinking something bad happened, gets a bad feeling, and he rips his clothes. Verse 30 down to verse 36. And he returned unto his brethren and said, the child is not, and whither shall I go? And they took Joseph's coat and killed a kid of the goats and dipped the coat in the blood. And they sent the coat of many colors, and they brought it to their father and said, this have we found. Know now whether it be thy son's coat or no. And he knew it and said, it is my son's coat. An evil beast hath devoured him. Joseph is without doubt rent in pieces. And Jacob rent his clothes and put sackcloth upon his loins and mourned for his son many days. And all his sons and all his daughters arose up to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted. And he said, for I will go down into the grave unto my son mourning. Thus his father wept for him. And the Midianites sold him into Egypt unto Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh's and captain of the guard. So now Joseph is a slave, sold a slave in Egypt, sold a slave in Egypt. Interestingly enough, many signs that the father was with him. Number one, we saw the angel guide him to Dothan. Number 2, we see the dreams that took place. Number 3, what did generally Egyptians do with slaves? What did they do with slaves generally? Lots of times Egyptians would castrate the slaves. They would become eunuchs. They did not castrate Joseph. Did you notice that? They did not castrate Joseph. Yeah, many times. And our brethren Daniel was a eunuch. Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, they were all eunuchs because they would generally castrate the males. Matter of fact, they still had that practice when the Muslims would enslave our brethren. They would castrate the males. In fact, they still do it to this day. And they would rape the women and castrate the males. They still do it. Okay, that was the slave trade, the Arab slave trade that we suffered through. Now, it's interesting enough, the transatlantic slave trade, they didn't castrate all the males, and that's why we still multiplied. And that was, again, of the Father, right? That we would still be a nation because he promised that we were going to be a nation. But the trans-Sahara slave trade, they castrated the males that went with the Muslims, and the Muslims would rape the women, kill the sons, castrate the males that were adult, and rape the women. Okay, but going the opposite way to the west in the transatlantic slave trade, they did not. So they did not castrate Joseph when they took him into slavery, and of course that was of the Most High, that he would preserve the seed of the one that would get the double blessing. Praise the Most High. All right. So now in chapter 38, the Bible is going to deviate a minute and go into Judah. And we know why Judah is important, because Judah is the progenitor of the Messiah. Okay. So they're going to deviate in chapter 38, and Moses is going to write about Judah. And we understand, and Moses understood the importance of Judah. And so we're going to be reading more about Judah in chapter 38 of Genesis by the grace of the Most High tomorrow. Well, thank you for indulging me today. Again, thank you all for your support in terms of praying for my father, in terms of giving me support, in terms of this was a difficult week. Please continue to pray for our brother Castle King, who's dealing with a serious loss, and for his family, who is dealing with a serious loss. Your prayers are heard. I can bear witness. Your prayers are heard. They are felt, and the Father does hear them. Praise the Most High. Please continue to pray for Brother David, who still needs a job. It looked like he had one, but then something happened. Keep praying for him that he can get gainful employment soon. May the Most High bless you and keep you. May the Most High cause his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. And may he lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Shalom, brethren.